we know of, and heaven knows how many that we don't, infected and doomed to waste away and die. And in third world countries, that is a big deal. Sub-Saharan Africa, 7.5% of the population infected. All because, once again, the decision recommended by the sound scientists who had actually studied the effect of the disease on the population was not taken. Instead, a decision was taken that had nothing to do with the science. It was a political decision, it was a wrong decision, and it murdered tens of millions. That's why it matters to get the policy right. Here, let's take it down now from the millions just to one person. This lady, pictured by Reuters, contracted HIV from her husband. She passed it on to 2 previous boys who died. The boy you see here, visibly sick at her breast, died a month after this photograph was taken. She died a year later. That's what it means if policymakers are careless or reckless, or they pursue political agendas without regard to the cost, sometimes for people in faraway lands of whom we know too little, people who depend utterly upon us to get these decisions right. The responsibility of policymakers, therefore, is an honourable but also an onerous one. It is for us to get these decisions right. And that is why I am here today, because I want now to talk through with you how we get the science and the economics of this global warming scare right for good and all, so that those few of you who still at the moment think we do have a problem, and I entirely respect your opinion and understand where you're coming from in view of the way the media and the politicians and quite a few scientists have misled you, I'm going to show you how you can find out and work out the truth for yourselves. For the truth alone is worthy of our entire devotion. Here is what happens if we get it wrong. This is what is already happening in third world countries all over the world, because we decided that global warming was a problem. We decided to take 1/3 of the agricultural land of the US out of growing food for people who need it, and instead we devoted it to growing biofuels for clunkers that didn't. And the effect has been the doubling of world food prices in just 2 years, according to the World Health Organization, and also according to the World Bank, which has done a survey to explain this sudden jump in world food prices. Now, for us, paying $2 instead of $1 for a burger is an inconvenience. For the people in Haiti, like the gentleman you see here, who are living at the moment on mud pies made with real mud, they were paying 3 cents each for those mud pies, and those mud pies were just about keeping them alive. The price of world food doubled. The price of mud pies doubled. I told this story recently at a conference in Madrid of government and opposition leaders. And a lady in the front began crying. And I said, "I'm sorry to distress you." And she said, "I've just come back from Haiti. Now they can't even afford the mud pies." There have been food riots in a dozen regions of the world in the last 2 years. You will not have seen these food riots reported almost anywhere in the West. Let's just have a head count. How many of you have seen these food riots reported? A few, but only a few. How many of you have seen those food riots reported with the same enthusiasm and repetitiveness as you have seen the global warming scare reported? Not a hand goes up. Of course not. So, there is the energy policy that Africa is now suffering under. The energy source is timber, energy transmission on the backs of the poor, energy use in smoke-filled huts with no proper chimneys, where the children die of smoke-related diseases. That is the fate which those who believe in the climate scare would not only like to remain in Africa, but they would like to inflict that upon us as well. It is as crazy and as wicked as that. So now we come on to what I'm going to flash through very, very quickly, because there are just so many of the lies that are being told by those peddling this scare. You will be able to determine for yourselves very easily that these are lies. I'm going to show you that they're lies, and you're going to then be able to check, because copies of my presentation on disk, with each slide shown and each slide annotated, are available from the organisers of this event. And you just get in touch with them, and it'll help to raise funds for them. They won't be sending any funds to me. This is funds for them. They'll sell you a disc, and you can look at each of these slides in more detail later. But I am going to go through them very, very quickly now. So first of all, then, here is a few instances of where they tell you that they're going to lie. This is the first chairman of the UN's Climate Panel Science Panel, Sir John Horton. He wrote in a book on the subject, "Unless we announce disasters, no one will listen." Stephen Schneider, who says we have to offer up scary scenarios. Then Stephen Guilbeault of Greenpeace, global warming can mean colder. It can mean drier. It can mean wetter. That's what we're talking about. Where do they find these people? And then we have, of course, our old friend Albert Arnold Gore. I believe it is appropriate. I can't do his dreadful accent. I believe it is appropriate to have an over-representation of factual presentations on just how dangerous it is. Why does anyone, for a single moment, believe anyone who uses language in a mangled form like that? Now, here's a little test for you. Who is the first who will tell me what is visibly scientifically wrong with this poster for Gore's movie? The words in yellow are my words, but the rest is his poster. What is visibly wrong with it? Yeah, what's wrong with the graph? Let's hear it. That's right, you have a re-entrant. Under the word all there, if that was temperature or CO2 against time, it could not possibly kink backward like that. The whole line on that graph was drawn by a PR agent, not by a scientist. The rest of Gore's movie